webinar on regenerating cities. And we already have been people joining us, entering from the various parts of the world that they are joining us from. And we would like to start formally by reiterating the purpose of this event. And we've sent out, this is an event being organized by the Nigerian Business British Infrastructure Group to discuss the imperatives of regenerating cities and the importance of it. And we have put together a panel of about 5 gentlemen from different perspectives, from the perspectives of estate management, from the legal perspective, from the funding perspective, policy making and strategies, and the built environment perspectives. And these gentlemen will come one after the other to discuss these issues with us. We do expect that in the course of this conversation that a number of us may have comments and issues and suggestions to make. We would have an opportunity to do that. Yeah? My name is Yomi Lainka. I'll be moderating this conversation. And after this brief introduction, we would have the national prayer, which is the second stanza for our national anthem. And then I will quickly do some introductions of and recognition of our associate partners. And then we'll go on to have the convener and chairman of the Nigerian Global Business Forum do some opening remarks, welcoming all of us to this event. And then we'll start officially. So once again, I'd like to thank you all for joining us. We know that many more will be joining in the course of this conversation. We'll try and keep it sharp and lucid so that we can get in and out as quickly as possible. In aid of that, I'd just like us to go on to the second stanza of our national anthem to have an opening prayer. If you do know it, please just invoke it. If you don't, I will hear. And at the end of it, please just say amen or amen, as the case may be. The second stanza of our national anthem goes thus: O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and live in just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice reigns. That's the prayer, and I am hearing everybody say amen.
Amen.
Thank you for saying amen, and thank you for joining us. Thank you. Now, I'll just recognize a few of the associate partners of MBIG, and the associate partners that I'd like to recognize are the renowned architect, Dr. Larry Tarikoka, who is an associate partner, Engineer Wale Ogundalu. We also have Engineer Kaodeige. We also have Mrs. Udo Okonjo. We have architects Olumide Odukale. We also have Engineer Tomi Adebayo. And last but not the least is the Dr. Architect Tuji Olagunju. These are some of the partners, associate partners of the forum. I'd like to thank them for identifying with this forum and for being steadfast in their support all the time. It's now my pleasure to invite the convener and chairman of the Nigerian Global Business Forum to give his opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, Prince Afolabi Andu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by welcoming you all to the NBIG webinar, aptly titled A Case for Regenerating Nigerian Cities. Before we press on the subject matter for today, I believe it's only proper to give some background on NBIG. NBIJ is an acronym for the Nigerian British Infrastructure Group. This group is a specialist subsector of the Nigerian British Business Forum, and by extension, a member of the Nigerian Global Business Forum. The organization operates as a high-level infrastructure consortium, positioned to consult and also deliver major projects on all aspects of infrastructural development. Our associate partners and members are predominantly Nigerian professionals across the globe, people with proven track records spanning over 30 years in their respective fields of professional endeavors. Just a few months ago, the group held a topical webinar on the challenges of complex structures in Nigeria. A panelist consisting of the group's associate partners addressed a wide range of issues associated with defective building structures in Nigeria, concluding with impactful results and recommendations on how those issues can be effectively addressed. With this background knowledge on NBIG, I believe we can now effectively press on to address our agenda for today. As earlier stated, a highly accomplished panelist will be presenting a robust case for regenerating Nigerian cities. The question is, why are we particular about Nigerian cities? Ladies and gentlemen, today more than half of the world population resides in cities, and this figure is expected to increase significantly in the next decades. This incessant growth clearly presents multifaceted challenges as we shape the cities of the future. How we choose to manage urbanization and engineer our cities will ultimately have consequences for our world. It is with this in mind that we have assembled a crop of highly respected and accomplished Nigerian professionals across the globe to showcase merits for urbanization alongside economic developmental strategies that will make Nigerian cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, all in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 11. In conclusion, let me state that through the gathering of this interdisciplinary team, ranging from legal experts to authorities in smart and green urban planning, alongside economic strategists, I am confident that outcomes of our deliberation this afternoon will lead to the inevitable process and provision of a vibrant, healthy, and highly sustainable environment. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I once again thank you for taking time to join us at this most vital session. God bless you all.
As I mentioned before, we will get started now. If you do have comments and questions, kindly go to the chat room, leave us your comments and questions in there. At the appropriate time, we will come back and attend to those questions or comments that you may have left for us. As I mentioned before, the 5 speakers will come in order. The first person we'll be having is Mr. Barry Oshilaja, who is the first speaker to present his paper. And I'd like to introduce him briefly. Mr. Barry Oyekule Oshilaja is an internationally exposed board and investment committee member with over 30 years experience in real estate and financial services. He's well qualified to leverage management, extensive financial structuring knowledge, and experience in transaction-oriented positions. He has had experience as a non-executive director of the EDC Securities Limited. I was a senior advisor, a non-executive director at UACN. He's presently the chairman of UPDC Hotels. He's also a consultant on real estate and investment strategy advisory at EcoBank, Nigeria. He's also a non-executive director at Old Mutual Nigeria General Insurance. He's been senior vice president, head of EDC Nigeria with EcoBank Transnational Incorporated. He was with EcoBank for several years. And for 10 years, he was with Jones Lang LaSalle Corporate Finance in London. He's been associate director. So he's had over 30 years experience, as we said. He was educated at University of Warwick. He's been educated at the Warwick Business School. He's been at INSEAD. He's been at the University of Lagos, where he took his bachelor's degree. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, kindly welcome with me, Mr. Barry Oyekunle Oshilaja.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Kunle Oshilaja. This afternoon, I will be talking about the topic is regenerating Nigerian cities. My agenda will follow the following lines. Very quickly, what is regeneration? A slight definition on that. I will talk at the typical ingredients for a successful regeneration and PPP in Nigeria. I will then give some global examples of PPP regeneration across the world, and I will talk at some potentials in Nigeria. So what is regeneration? In simple terms, it's the investment of money to improve infrastructure, the quality of life, and the economy of an area. Generally, money is invested by private sector or public sector, both parties. And it is usually as a result of decay in a particular location, For example, after deindustrialization in the UK, after the war, there was need to revitalize the City of London, need to revitalize East End of London and cities like Liverpool. And as we can see in Lagos, for instance, after everybody moved to Abuja, the decay in Broad Street and Marina area requires some revitalization in there. So those are the sort of examples in Lagos. And the general impact of regeneration is that it appeals to more people to live in. With populations growing at the rates that they are in big cities, there's need to make the cities more friendly for people to live in. And there's need certainly to do a lot more in Nigeria. And this is what this is all about. What are the typical ingredients for a successful PPP in regeneration? Generally, and in most examples across the world, it is government-sponsored, always government-sponsored. In most successful instances, it is private sector fronted. So government sponsored, but private sector fronted. The institutes or the entities that carry it on have some powers generally, and they have the powers of planning, urban planning, as in the case in the UK, various examples that have been set up. You have urban development corporations, entities that are living, working entities that stay there to do the work. And they have powers to grant planning consent, powers to implement planning consent, and most importantly, powers of compulsory purchase. Because unless you have all of those, it's very difficult to regenerate big locations and cities. The third leg, and the most important leg, is the funding. The funding can come in many ways, usually backed by Act of Parliament, as I said. It could either be private vehicle or public listing. In some instances, in one of the examples I've given, they're completely listed company that are set up by Act of Parliament in those countries. In the UK, there have been various examples where the government creates things called tax breaks, enterprise zones, which allows for pension funds and individuals to put their monies in. And that allows those entities to be funded. And in some instances, it's just direct government funding, as in the case in some parts of LDDC with things like Jubilee Line extension, of which I will talk to as well over time. We're going to canter through this very quickly so that we don't spend too much time, but I will just give examples of what has happened in some cities. I will start with a location in the City of London. And by the way, some of these examples are things that I've been particularly, I was directly involved in at one point in time in my working life. One is Broadgate, the City of London. Broadgate, which is part of City of London. By the way, there's City of London and there's London. City of London is the financial district of the City of London. Broadgate came by, it's a 32-acre part of the East End of London. It was never originally part of the City of London or the financial district. But at the time, in the mid-80s, when Margaret Thatcher was encouraging what was the Big Bang, that is the financial services being requirements for large dealing floors. Because of the small sizes of plots in the City of London, there was need to regenerate and create large floor plates of buildings. By Act of Parliament, the East End of London, what was an area which was actually E1 postcode, was designated to become EC1 postcode. That is East Central, which is part of the postcode for East London. And that area, 32 acres of it, was designated by Act of Parliament, where two developers, Roosevelt Stanhope, created the first large floor plates for dealing of offices. So in that instance, it was again by the Act of Parliament, private sector led by Roosevelt Stanhope Group, and it created one of the largest developments that you find originally that created the City of London dealing floors. It was backed by British Land, Roosevelt Stanhope. It has created about 4 million square feet of offices. And today, you will not believe what is there. It's a large scheme. That's an overview of what you see in Canary Wharf, in Broadgate today, right across Liverpool Street Station. The whole of that environment was never part of the City of London, but it was regenerated by what is Broadgate, what's called Broadgate today. It's one of the largest development schemes in London. That's the center of the square, of Broadgate Square, and it's a vibrant area which employs something like about 50,000 people today. The next scheme I will talk about, which again was very big, is something called Solidaire in Beirut. In terms of background, that's what you can see by its image. It's rightly it's a huge development for the regeneration of the center of Beirut after the war. Solidaire was created by the government and asked by Act of Parliament again to plan and redevelop the city center of Beirut in the 1990s after the Lebanese Civil War. It had the powers to do various things. One, to reconstruct and plan, to finance and develop new infrastructure, to reconstruct and rehabilitate old structures through urban planning, and of course, to manage the whole area. Now, that company called Solidaire has now morphed into something bigger than just redevelopment of Beirut. But the starting point was the restoration of 180 hectares of city center of Beirut. It has taken it 30 years, but now Beirut has now come back to become what it was, which used to be the Paris of the Middle East. But again, the ingredients are: one, the Act of Parliament to give powers to an entity to do all the work, and two, private sector led to finance and fund what you see there. And today, after 30 years, it has done a lot of work for what has changed Beirut city center. And that's part of what you see. Over here was what Beirut used to be, hokey pokey, and now all of that is looking very exciting and more modernized. The third and last example I would talk at very, very quickly is what is called King's Cross Central. Again, very personal to me, and I worked on this for 10 years to take this to what it is today. King's Cross was a part of London which was run down in the 80s, and you can see what it is now today. But by, again, Act of Parliament, what happened was what was called HS1, that is the High-Speed Rail 1, which created Eurostar through to Gare du Nord, had its links originally to Waterloo, and that had to be changed to bring it to North London across the river, so that you can get direct connection from France straight through to Scotland. Out of that, the entity, which was called London and Continental Railways, had two obligations by Act of Parliament. One, to develop the cities, and two, to regenerate the nodal points and the stations. And the stations included what was Stratford City, the Olympics site, and of course, King's Cross. And with King's Cross today, what you see there is a huge scheme of 8 million square feet, which is probably the largest regeneration in London today, after Canary Wharf. Canary Wharf is something which I haven't talked about, but is one of those things. And you can see the map there. As you enter the channel, all the nodal points in red: Ashford, Ebbsfleet, Stratford, and King's Cross was to be redeveloped by London and Continental Railways. And that is the continuation of some form of urban regeneration in those locations. And that's what has happened to King's Cross today. Some of the big things about King's Cross: 67 acres brownfield site. Today it has something like about 8 million square meters or square feet of master plan, about 50 buildings, a large chunk of it having been redeveloped. When we were working on it, everybody hoped at best we would get probably £25 per square feet of developments there. Today, you'll be lucky if you get King's Cross at 75 square meters. It has a massive square. The river basin has been redeveloped, and that's the University of Arts London, with a big square for them there. The old St. Pancras station and all that. Sorry, I want to counter through this very quickly so that other colleagues can come through. These are some of the images of a redeveloped King's Cross. Finally, and very quickly, as I said, there's a common thread to all of this, whether it is UK, Nigeria, Beirut, US, as in the case of various other developments in the US. There's usually a government-led act, some form of backing, and then either a state gazette that backs it, and the entity usually has unitary powers of development, either grant, consent, development, and compulsory purchase, and the funding is generally from private sector. In some of the potentials, I think for Lagos, we have the Marina and Broad Street area, we have Yaba, Ebutemeta, we have various parts of Ibadan, and perhaps Kaduna, after all the things that has happened in the area. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is my presentation, and I'm happy for questions at a later time. Thank you very much.
To pace us up a bit more, I'd like to just go straight to the next presentation, and it's to be delivered by Professor Ken Ife.
Right. Thank you, distinguished participants. Let me just go straight to
to the project, to the discussion, because we don't seem to have much time now. If you go to the next page, please. I'll be looking at the strategy for growing and regenerating the economy, but I'm focusing on Ibadan because I hear so much about Ibadan and we have so much to share with it. But the lessons there can be shared for many other towns and cities in the country. So I will look at some economic analysis, and I would also look at the strategy side of it, how to develop a robust strategy, the key components of metropolitan city. And then I will look at the key policy aims, vision, mission, and strategic objective, how it is put together. Then I look at action plan and then enabling action areas. Those are the two key areas we're going to look at. Next page, please. Next. First, let me start with the key economic advantages of embarking on this project. We're going to have to create millions of local employment, without a doubt. And in the same way, hundreds of thousands of MSMEs will emerge in such concentration. We have an inclusive approach to wealth creation, rapid growth, and sustainable poverty reduction as a result of it. And you can attract a lot of investments, some of them domestic investment. We should place more priority on that if we're going to energize the community. Foreign direct investment can come in, a bit dicey right now in the current dispensation. Foreign portfolio investments can come to pick up some of the cherry parts of it. And then our diaspora remittance recovery plan would also come in, because we have many things in the diaspora that would energize, that would interest us in this project. Oyo State government's revenue, IGR, will increase without a doubt, and it will be exponentially if we also plan it very well and integrate other aspects of the local economy. That will now free up their resources to enable them invest in education, invest in workforce development, invest in infrastructure, invest in health, social infrastructure. But at the same time, can also invest in trunk infrastructure, even if they are not doing it for federal government, but they can repair and they can do repair and maintain federal government trunk infrastructure and then get reimbursed. But then they can invest a lot more on arterial infrastructure, specialized ones, infrastructure such as the inland container basins and all the depots and all kinds of terminals, and then quality infrastructure which we require for any sustainable export capacity, especially around food and food-related products. If we adopt a cluster approach along value chains, it will now help aggregation. It will have rapid capital formation. It will have accumulation. It will have transformation of those value chains, and it can help as the economy of scale if we approach those. Many more benefits, reinvigoration of the local, state, and regional, sub-regional economy. All right. It will increase inward investment and relocation of businesses. Many businesses will relocate without a doubt, and a lot of them will come from Lagos and the Southwest region. They will relocate to this destination, and then households in the area, you definitely have that, and they have achieving additional economic, social, and environmental outcomes will come. You will have more sustainability, because the moment you think economic, think social, think environmental, then there will be economic sustainability in the whole outcome. Then I've mentioned about increasing IGR. It will also help us build better city workspaces where people can live, where people can work, and where more diverse talents can be attracted, and then a better quality of life, which is also something that will attract people wanting to change jobs and go there. It will make every attempt at the planning phase to ensure that we will minimize gentrification and loss of social capital. That is always a big criticism of projects of this nature. They invariably tend to lead to gentrification. Then finally, of course, in all of this we know it will increase the employment opportunity, but there will be skills development, because we have to give to planning what it requires to plan. And that is going to come from emphasis on the balance of skills, the the prioritization of the economic priorities, and then we will now make sure that we give the planners what they will require to size all the facilities. There will be income, more income, there will be reduced poverty, there will be enhanced quality of life, there will be enhanced social infrastructure, there will be more connected communities, and there will be more connected neighborhoods, and there will be improved education and health. General education and health, in addition to more specific skills that are focusing on the kind of industry mix and balance of businesses coming into the area. Right. So how do we go about this? First, we need a strategy. We have to have a growth strategy. And that growth strategy would have to be well elaborated and financial implementable urban community action plans. We will have to have both. In the case of the strategy, we are going to be looking at how we build local and strategic partnerships. It's all about partnership. Government doesn't even have the money to do anything. Government public expenditure in Nigeria is 5.7% of the GDP. So it's actually private sector that you're going to be looking at. And so it has to be about partnership all the way. And it has to involve local if you want it to be sustainable. Then the second thing is the process. The process is more important than the outcome. And I'd have to say it again. The process is more important than the outcome. The process has to be bottom up. There is when you go to planning, then you can have a bit of top down, but it has to be ab initio, bottom up, because you're talking about regenerating. It has to be bottom up. Unless you want to expel the whole community and they go and build houses there, then that becomes gentrification. So the process has to require identifying and engaging critical multi-stakeholders in a bottom-up, open, transparent, and inclusive process. And that process would unleash the human and material resources and potentials of that state, of the Ibadan and the environment, and then thereby attracting the necessary domestic and foreign investment. Now, the first step in the process is how do you ensure multi-stakeholder engagement? And then, of course, you have to carry out an analysis of the multi-stakeholders. There are frames for doing this, but because of time, I couldn't go through all that. Then after that, you come to SWOT analysis. And then personal SWOT is looking at the internal strength of the Ibadan as a city, then looking at the weaknesses, and then looking at what kind of opportunities that we can tackle, and then what kind of threats that we are going to have to face. The world will not stand still while Ibadan develops. All other people around you are going to be taking, preparing for a fight and want to compete, especially Lagos and other state capitals around you. Then these two processes are to help us identify strategic needs, and then how do we prioritize those needs? Now, those are the things we'll carry together and give to the planner. The planner will now begin to see how it dimensions all the things that have been agreed and identified. Then we also have to have a basic exercise that we have to do. It begins with an analysis of the factor endowment of the city. What are your factor endowments? And how do we leverage the strategic assets that you have and your people and the potential that they have? The kind of things you are going to take one by one is to look at the natural resources that you have. And those also involve agriculture. For example, you have the most number of dams in the country. The last time I counted when I was doing my youth corps, it's almost about 15 to 30. You have so many of them and not actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. So which means aquaculture, agriculture, irrigation, all that, this, water supply, all of that are in that mix. Then how about mineral resources? There's nowhere you don't have mineral resources. You have some gold somewhere. You have so many mineral resources that are there. Then what are the locational advantages of the city? And then what are the landscape, and how does proximity to Lagos and all the economic power, which is the economic powerhouse, what is that proximity? What would it mean to you? What will the 6 deep sea ports being conceived? How are they going to come to you, especially Lake and the Badagry? They're going to pass through Ibadan without a doubt. And then how about the special economic zones we are working with at ECOWAS, which we are trying to include the Okerete of Oyo State to the Badagry one. So we've done that. We've gone very far now with the Republic of Benin. How are you going to get in there? Then human resource. How will you make your citizens the real beneficiaries of this development? And what about the culture and tourism potential? Next page, please. Next. Right, now let's look, focus more on Ibadan, because I don't want to be everywhere. I just want to focus on Ibadan because that's the marching order that I have. Key components of a cosmopolitan Ibadan origination strategy. One, look at these two areas, the suburban and the urban. In the suburban, there will be mini strategies. The mini strategy will look at retail and shopping malls. That's what the previous speaker was showing you about the transformation, focusing on all of those malls and the offices. How about arts and culture, landmark cultural buildings? We have to identify them and work around those. What strategy are we going to have to bring them to the center of the development agenda? How about industrial and knowledge park? No town in Nigeria has more agricultural research center than Ibadan. That is where Awolowo made sure from Awolowo upwards, every research center in agriculture, IITA, NIHOT, name them, they are there. That is knowledge. That means that Ibadan is the home of bioeconomy in Nigeria. And bioeconomy in Germany is $2.4 trillion, 17% of German GDP. I was the chairman of the bioeconomy in the National Development Plan's Digital Economy and Science, Technology, and Innovation. And I have brought bioeconomy to the National Development Plan. Ibadan is the heart of bioeconomy development, if you guys want to think about that. Now, the technology hubs. Look at technology. Nigeria is number one now in technology hubs, high-tech hubs, fintech hubs in Africa. Number one, followed by South Africa, followed by Ghana. Even in terms of investments going into tech hubs, Nigeria is number one. Even in Africa, there are 90 million MSMEs in Africa. 41 million are from Nigeria, 48%. So how can Nigeria be 18% of population of Africa, 18% of GDP, but in entrepreneurship, we are 48%, 3 times beyond our weight, pointing beyond our weight. That is something for you to think about. Now, heritage tourism, you have to exploiting historic sites and attractions. The housing schemes and mixed developments offering life-work balance in an increasing virtual working environment right now. Now, those are for the urban side. But then for the rural, not the suburban, you'll be looking at agribusiness and farm diversification strategies, utilizing the vast water resources bodies that you have in and around the Ibadan metropolis. You have to look at clean and renewable energy solutions in a low carbon future, involving, of course, all the off-grid, mini-grid, and all these micro dams where you can create them. Then you have sustainable rural communities and clusters and suburban livelihoods, addressing suburban livelihoods. So those are some of the mini strategies for the peripheral, the urban, suburban. Next slide, please. Now we come to the actual policy, key policy aims, vision, mission, strategic objectives. I didn't want to elaborate on those because there's no time to discuss them, but I just quickly said one aim. One aim is to grow the local economy in a sustainable way by productively engaging all the human, natural, and mineral resources of Ibadan metropolis. Just one of them. But then going down to priority action areas. Now, that's where I now identify. You will find out that each of the presentations will fit into something here. Planning and development control. The planning data will supply to the people doing planning and development control, I've already mentioned. For example, by 2050, Lagos population is going to be projected to grow to 65 million people. Where are they going to grow to? They're not going to the sea. They're just going to be going up towards Ibadan, heading up to Oyo State and then Ogun State. That's where they're going to be heading to. So what is our strategy to take that business and make sure that, I've mentioned the deep sea port, what that will mean. And then, let me leave that. And also that means you will be the seat of mega industrial hubs in that zone. Nobody will want to go and put a major industrial zone in the middle of the traffic jam and all that stuff. They're going to be coming out, but their products can go in. The infrastructure, you remember I mentioned the trunk, materials, specialized in quality infrastructure, then built environment.
That's where the architect will be looking at construction and housing, individual estate, improvement in the built environment, including all these amenities. That all that stuff is where it's going to be looking at. Okay, next page. Now we have investment, funding, and financing. Somebody's going to be looking at that. But bear in mind that it has to be invest. Even if we are going to demolish houses, you're going to need investment to do that. If you want to fight corruption, you need investment to do that. If you are going to build new things, you need investment. And that investment would also have to include in security and the infrastructure. And then, of course, the actual material, which could be a natural resource, or mineral resource, or human resource, any of those. And then you have to bring in technology. Technology will cut down the cost where we are going to do. And then all of that will lead to creating wealth. And then from there, we'll create employment. From employment, disposable revenue. And then disposable revenue, these guys will go away and buy education, good health, and have sustainable poverty reduction. We'll focus on that cycle. And don't bring in government. And government is going to rob Peter to pay Paul and then make it inequality. There's nothing, no inequality there. We're going to have to focus on this and create the world that we need. Then entrepreneurship, MSME development, business development, and skills agenda. That is a big section where we must get on top of so that we will give the planner the data that he requires so that he can plan well. And then we involve everybody in education. Federal government is involved in education, state government, local government, so that we can dimension the skills people, the vocational skill mix, depending on the kind of technologies we are bringing in. We have to know in advance and then plan to a 10-year plan on to how to provide the various skills required. And if we have skills in good quantity, investors will come looking for those skills to come and invest in you rather than go anywhere else. Now, employment action, there have to be a series of employment initiatives to create jobs, to lock into various opportunities that is going to come. You don't sit down and wait for companies to come and do their own thing and employ people. No, we have to proactively know what they need and then begin to train for them and then lock them into all kinds of things, the way Nigeria hasn't done it before. And, a bit more. Then agriculture and agro-industrial development. Now, I've already mentioned the potential of Ibadan in this area, and I have given you a few things where we can focus on in that. Then there's community economic development and social enterprise and community empowerment. Don't forget the community. The community are very, very essential. Otherwise, they will carry machete and come and kill people who are going into their land. You have to, and then somebody in abroad will phone their people and say that my father is part of the ownership of this land you said you have sold, and the trouble will start and they will stop the thing. So they have to be involved. Then culture and tourism, I've already mentioned how you can engage with that. Okay, next slide, please. Well, now we'll come to the enabling action areas. Now, these enabling action areas are the things to support the key areas I've discussed before, the key thematic areas. So what are those? You have government. What's government going to do? Governance. What's it going to do? Provide security, but then also make sure that local security and local employment is generated heavily so that more people will go into security. Look at what happened in Lagos. Last month, who are there? There are thousands of jobs just to provide security, to provide urban cleaning the environment and all that. For all those security of jobs. Then ease of doing business and investment climate reform, that's government. Fiscal incentives, that's government. Local procurement, that is government. Government should buy the products of the companies that are going to be operating there and creating it, because government is a big buyer. Not that it is as much as the private sector buying, but it gives a signal. Then internally generated revenue strategies will be part of governance. Now, how about the legal and regulatory framework? Local content. Big boys coming in there, you must engage them ab initio on local content. So we're going to go and get a local content law in Oyo state that says that, just frame it along the same side as the one that has been done for the Niger Delta. And then, then you have the land issues, alternative dispute resolution issues, because you're going to get behind them of conflict.
Prof, I'm hoping you're winding down, please.
I finished, though. I finished.
Okay, good.
The technology is the last one, that you can't do anything without technology. So you must make sure technology is central to whatever you're trying to do, because that makes it easier. And that is my final slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kenife. It's a full load of materials to digest, and we understand that the challenges of time will not allow us to fill in. But we'll talk about how to maximize this opportunity towards the end of this program. I'd just like to invite, therefore, the next panelist to present his own, to make his own presentation. And this is Mr. Shina Ayodele Fagbenro Byron, popularly known as SFB. Shina Fagbenro Byron holds a BSc in economics and also a bachelor's of law and also a master's of information science from the University of Ibadan in Oyo State. He has worked for 10 years with the United Kingdom's Government's Department of International Development, DFID, but he retired in September 2015. Afterwards, he has served as governance advisor in the delivery of several federal governance programs, regional coordinator for Southwest and Southeast Nigeria, as well as the head of office for Lagos and Enugu, respectively. He has also served as resource person to past and present governments, especially in structuring development support and technical assistance to state and non-state actors. But that's not the only side to Dr. Fagbenro Byron. He's an Afro-jazz musician and a stage performer. He has published works, especially and including the acclaimed peace song, Alafia, and he has performed live under the name of Byron. He's been in politics. He contested for a local government chairmanship election in Etiosa, local government area of Lagos State, on the platform of the PDP in 2001. In July 2009, he joined Kowa Party as a founding member with others including Trinoa Asuzu, Fola Adiola, Ngozi Iwere, Mukhtar Bakari, Remishonari, and so forth. He was the party's presidential candidate in the 2023 general elections. We wonder why he is not contesting in 2020. Oh, sorry, it was in 2019 that he was the presidential candidate. So we're wondering why he's not contesting in 2023. But for now, let us talk about regenerating Nigerian cities. He's about to make a case and talk to us about funding and strategies for funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yomi. That was a very generous introduction, and I would say, saying that every city is a living organism. They grow. The cities grow. At times they grow out of themselves. They grow beyond what they had capacity for. Some cities are known to grow according to a plan. Some cities continue to expand without any plan. If you drive into Ibadan from Lagos, just look on your right. The entire space from the toll gate, old toll gate, down to Iwo Road to the right is virtually unplanned. But the purpose of what we're trying to say, in essence, is that there are certain places that will be underused. There will be places that are, decaying, and all this goes to the very essence of livelihoods of the people. So naturally, cities must regenerate as a matter of sustainability. And just to, I wouldn't want to reinvent what of my colleagues had said, but just to, say a few things about urban regeneration themselves. It's an approach to city planning, repairing the socio-economic problems of the urban area, improving physical and environmental aspects of the city. It aims to transform obsolete areas to economically viable areas. There are two examples. Thank you. Oshilaga mentioned Britain, he mentioned London, and those I'll give you two examples. The Millennium Dome too is part of it. But closer to home, we have in Ibadan City, people who are familiar with Ibadan, you know where the ShopRite is. Several years ago, ShopRite used to be a dumpster. Those are just two examples, bringing one home. What is the scope of urban regeneration? Number one, when you start talking about regeneration, you look at places that were probably assaults. I mean, Oshilaja mentioned Kuwait, Dubai, what's the name?
Beirut.
Lebanon.
Beirut.
Beirut, yes. Thank you very much, sir. And
it was a lot of Beirut was damaged, by bombs, by all sorts of things. Now, it could also be things like, look at Chernobyl, it could be something that it could have been a catastrophe. It might not have been war. And what this creates is what you call brown fields. That is, fields, areas, spaces of lands that have actually been damaged or are disused, and these places have to be developed. That is one scope. Barry also mentioned another example of how a certain space, particularly, I'm not sure whether it was King's Cross he mentioned, where you had to, London is a very small place, comparatively. It's not small, but space is something that they have to be very jealous of. So there's what is called the densification of the place. That is, being conscious of, taking advantage or intensification. It's actually the opposite of gentrification. Bringing a lot of people together, concentrating. How do you manage large populations within a place? That also falls within the scope of regeneration. So the lists I'm providing are the things that can trigger or can be the focus of. Another thing is heritage preservation. At times we see, and this happens a lot in places like Spain, in Italy, in Israel. There are some places in Israel, there's some places in Jerusalem, there's some places in Tel Aviv, where you call the Holy Land. They have been preserved, the heritage. And one place, I'll show you a couple of pictures. We have an opportunity in Ibadan. Look, take a look at something like this, where people think of this, you look at heritage areas which you want to preserve and regenerate. Also, public spaces, just public spaces. There are times there are just spaces that are just left open, that are not useful, and that could be the focus. But again, principally, you're also looking at public service delivery opportunities. And I've listed a couple here. Waste management itself can require that we regenerate water systems, new sanitation systems, education, health reasons. We can regenerate because of these reasons. Something that is not on this list that Barry mentioned was transport. Transportation itself. Putting a new transport system may require or trigger regeneration. So these are just a couple of examples of what I said, the brownfield properties, the expansion, the development, or reuse of which may be complicated. Here, it will take a bit of technical knowledge to convert a brownfield into something that is useful. We've talked about densification, managing increasing density of people living in urban areas. We've talked about public spaces reactivation. If you look at the picture you're seeing, that is a public space, somewhere in London, I believe. And what they did was they just sort of look at this space, made it a common thing, made sure it's not accessible to cars or motorcycle or bikes, and just so that people can walk and stuff. And it's one of the most beautiful places you can see. This is a picture of Bowers Tower. And this is where you have heritage preservation. It's an example in Ibadan. And the reason why I mention all this, the subject matter to which I'm trying to speak to is funding and funding opportunities. Some funders are more inclined to look for one of these things. If you say what you want to fund, you're doing regeneration, the first question they ask is for what? What's your focus? So you could say not all funders, funders don't do everything. For example, the USAID has repeatedly over the past years continued to advertise support for any city that wants to rebuild or any of its heritage or landmark places. It's a little funding, but a little funding here, a little funding there goes a long way. And of course, I said public service delivery. That is also something else: water, waste, sanitation, education, and transport. So when we say funding of urban regeneration, we're looking at the investments required. They will come from public, they will also come from private sector. Large scale urban regeneration projects could be very complex. This is just to understand the nature of the animal that we're going after. Only a few cities on their own can require this funding, so you need partnerships. Professor Ken had mentioned it. Even government doesn't have its money. Even where it generates revenue, it's only so, it can only go so far. So basically, what you need is both internal and external funding sources for this. This is my next slide. So, why would we? When you go and apply for funding from somewhere, they will want to know exactly what you're using the funds for, which aspects, and there are different aspects in the process. And there is no process of regeneration that does not start with studies, surveys, planning. There are people who will fund preliminary stuff like that. There are people who will look and hire and fund your architects, your engineers, your legal people, your property, your marketing, your financial planning. That needs funding itself. Then acquisition of property. Just as Professor Ken said, you don't want to drive people away. People will have to be compensated. That will require funding. If you're going to demolish a site to regenerate, that itself requires funding. If you want to rehabilitate a place or renovate an existing building, that's a different kind of thing. Construction, if you want to have an affordable housing scheme, that is itself. Professor Ken made mention of job creation and things like that, and training and the components that go into these things. That also requires. Now, the reason why we're breaking these things down is to be able to know and understand that different funders are interested in different things. Pardon my, I don't do my something. So anyway, and we also have what I call other funding approaches. That is, how do you package? What are the concepts? What are the policies? For example, you have a developer extraction policy that will generate funding. You have business improvement districts. When you create these things under policy, right, you also open the space for funders to know exactly that you are ready, you know exactly what you want to do. Land readjustments, direct grants, tax incentives. These are the ways we could generate. If you take, for example, look at upzoning. Upzoning means redesignating a zone for something else, which will attract more money. So by the way we designate even the zones of the cities will tell us whether there's a funding opportunity or not. You cannot go and meet a funder and ask him to fund something that is industrial and you're next to, say, a residential area or health. So all those things go together. There's something called payment in lieu of taxes. These are structures that even places like the World Bank can help us to develop that will pigeonhole or fit into whatever is fit for purpose for us. However, before you go to the financial market for urban regeneration, and this was the type of thing that Professor Ken Ife was trying to say, it has to be bottom up. And this particular slide dovetails into some of the things you say. You have to have a concept. You have to have a vision and a strategy. This is where Professor Ken was talking about SWOT analysis, PERT analysis, and a couple of things that has to be done. Understanding the demographics, the economy, both on the public side and on the private sector side. Then you need a framework. You need a framework for the plan. And then you do the financial evaluation, which are the figures, the numbers, which you need to present. Nobody, no development partner, no funder goes, you can't approach a funder if you're not clear on the type of funds you need, what you need those funds for, what aspect of the regeneration you need the funds for. Because if you go somewhere and you ask for funds directly for something, and they say, okay, have you done an EIS? Have you done an environmental impact assessment? And you haven't done that, that's putting the cart before the horse. And then after that, you need a management structure which covers how those funds are going to be managed, deployed, what are the different aspects of those. So this slide. So when we have all this together, then we can approach funders. As a matter of fact, the kind of work we do to put all this in place will tell us which funders are likely to listen to us, which are likely to be interested. There are some people that are only facilitate funding. The World Bank is more of a facilitator, right? A couple of others in Asia, you have, also Europe and America, you have people who will fund these things. But please, you need to go through a process and you need to have your data right. There are sustainability issues that we have to, you can go outside for funding, but you have to look within on exactly how whatever you regenerate. There's no point in doing urban regeneration, and 10 years from now you need another funding to do something else. You have to factor in certain things that will ensure that whatever you do is sustainable. Programmatically, you have to reorientate people on public expenditure, right? Secondly, people who are in charge of public works should also consider maintenance culture. There has to be some underwriting of the cost of urban infrastructure. The capital markets, the capital markets themselves have to be refashioned. For example, municipality bonds could be things that the capital market could start looking at. Of course, you've got the private sector management and public utilities encouraging the PPPs that Professor Ken Ife was talking about. The relationship between private sector and public sector has to be strengthened such in a way that the public sector doesn't see the private sector as, oh, these are just contractors, people coming, and they don't become a clog in the wheel of progress. We need to promote research, research in terms of there is nothing that doesn't have a research background, including engineering, design, building, architecture. Then we have to pursue a maintenance culture because you don't do regeneration. The reason why we are in a state in some of our cities today in dire need of regeneration is because we've lost maintenance culture. And so what are the enabling factors? And I'm talking specifically to cities now. There are certain things that can enable a city, any city, because I'm looking broadly now, beyond Ibadan, any city, right? And unfortunately for us in Nigeria, we moved from city councils to local government councils. Ibadan right now, for example, is a mega city, but it has 11 local governments, which means 11 local governments can plan anyhow they like in a manner that is incongruent to what is, value adding to the entire city. So I would say regeneration would have been much better if we still had an Ibadan municipality that ran it. But let's look at this. There are certain factors. Number one, you have, what does the Constitution say about cities? And this is why I mentioned the first point. The institutional framework now, we deal with local governments. So nobody's really in charge of cities, but in terms of local government. How much does the city control in terms of its fiscal management? If you're going to develop any city, if you're going to regenerate any city in Oyo State, is it going to be on the basis of local government or on the basis of a city standalone on its own? And constitutionally, we have a problem with that, especially when it comes to fiscal management. The city's ability to be credit worthy, cities that go out for municipality bond, they demonstrated the reason why Tinubu was able to break the bond market at that time because people saw Lagos as a mega city. And you will notice that Lagos, when it markets itself to the world, it is usually hesitant to market itself as a state, to say the mega city of Lagos. So what is the city's capacity to use innovative financial techniques such as tax increments, financing, development rights? You cannot say it's going to be politically tricky. If you want to develop a city, a particular city within a state, other cities can say, well, why aren't you developing our city? Maybe this state, this particular state that has the money, why don't you do everything? But if cities had a bit more independence, that could do it. Finally, understanding the two distinctive groups of instruments to be used for financing urban regeneration. Number one, the financial tools themselves. The financial tools themselves could attract funding, but also the regulatory environment you create. So you could have regulatory instruments that attract funding, and you could also have financial instruments that attract funding. We cannot finish this without talking about smart cities, because the world is even going beyond just regenerative cities. We are talking about smart cities, cities that are triggered and driven by technology. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where most of the funding is going right now for urban regeneration. People are looking how are you integrating your technology with your city management? How are you using technology to improve services? How are you using the data from cities to manage service delivery? So this is the last slide. The key success factors for city regeneration or urban regeneration. Number one, strong political will. There must be strong political will. I mean, there's no point. We've said a lot can be triggered by government, but whoever is in charge, it has to be an agenda of the government. It has to be deliberate. Secondly, there has to be buy-in from the community. And Professor Ken Ife has mentioned this several times, buy-in from the community and the business sector. Then you have to have private sector financing. The public service must enable, and of course you have to have the PPP partnership between them. Most importantly, you have to have a long-term institutional arrangement. The laws of the state have to be changed. The attitudes of the people have to be changed, and a number of things have to be changed.